Yes, welcome. It's your boy Malik 16's F a Rap Critic. And no, it's not too late to say Happy New Year. Today we're celebrating the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the classic album. Some places you might see it called My Balls and My Word. Some places you might see with the full Scarface title, All I Have in This World Is My Balls and My Word. But very special album to a lot of folk. And we're just really in a great opportunity here to have the man himself, Baton Rouge's own.
Don't bleed the dawn, you know what I mean? Oh, look. Yeah, man.
To talk about the making of it, some of the behind the scenes, and his own opinion of the album. A little background on this album: it was released January 20th, 1998 on Priority Records. And if I'm not mistaken, believe this your debut album?
That's my debut to the world right there, man.
We going over Category 1, which is the album, the product itself. And y'all take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. Go visit the Rap Ruler, where you can leave your rankings and ratings on the album and any other album that you see on there. And so yeah, we're gonna jump right into it. So the first dimension that we talk about is Dimension 1, the quality of the production. But let's talk about Happy Perez's production, man. How did y'all get together? How did y'all link up?
It's a story. Each individual, as far as the group, Lay Low, Max Manelli, Jay Vaughn, Shots Out, and Happy Perez. I knew Max when he was about 11 years old before I even saw him in the physical. It wasn't until about 2 years later before I see him, but we had an ongoing phone relationship for us building and just, for as our hip hop legacy and what it became and adding to for the structure of Baton Rouge hip hop. You see what I'm saying? And Louisiana hip hop. Max later in life, somewhere around 15, 16 years old, we was making some records and we was doing a few things before then, me and him in particular. But somewhere around that time, I met Jay Vaughn and met Happy, and that was his crew. And Happy was the producer and a dope Mexican rapper. He just don't rap nowadays. I used to encourage him to keep rapping and tell him, look, you're gonna open up the door to the brown community as well as we doing for the black community with you. So that was our kind of trade off, but they was homies and they went to school together. They was a little younger than me. So in the process of that, man, when he introduced me to Hap was like this magical kid that had a Casio keyboard with the wires hanging out the back of it. But the shit he played on that shit, man, super phenomenal. We got a whole lot of unreleased tapes and underground tapes that we never released to the world, and just freestyle sessions that were phenomenal based on his beat structure and construction for his music, playing the guitar and different things like that. So we found the overall producer that was really their producer. And me being somewhat, a legend in Baton Rouge and in the underground, I was on my way, first off to shoot for CeeLo Records, and it just, that chemistry, we all just kind of evolved within that time. So it was a special time in our life where we'd sit down and spend a night with each other mom's cribs in different places, and just accumulate that good music and just have freestyle sessions. And when it came time for me to come out solo, shouts out to Lee Time as well, the first producer of the CeeLo Records in the concentration camp, then Happy Perez. But and then I'm a producer too on the low, man. So me and Hap combined different sounds and Jimi Hendrix tapes and different things. He was a music connoisseur, so we had a whole different vibe. Same but different. Like I said, I had my evolution with each one of those guys individually. And we marked it as a world famous group, the concentration camp. But just having that one-on-one time with all of us and sitting down and structuring that record was creating Frankenstein Monster, man. So shouts out to Happy and Lay Low, Jay Vaughn and Max Manelli, man.
Man, you called Happy Perez a magical kid, and I think that sums it up, because what his production stands out the most on this album. And shout out to Happy, he's gone on and done some of the biggest pop records. Y'all can look him up, Ariana Grande and all that stuff. But
Grammy nominee, man. Grammy nominee, a few years back, I want to say, with Baby Bash or Miguel or one of those guys. So spectacular career.
The sounds that he was tapping into, though, he gave you this range that we just weren't hearing in hip hop at the time anywhere. And like from the beginning, I wanted to ask you, so the first track, Keep It Real, is that a banjo or is that some kind of Chinese instrument?
I think it's a banjo, and I may be slightly mistaken, what I wanted to do was capture the essence of Louisiana and that country sound. So I pitched the idea like that to him, and he brought a track back like that, and I was like, that's it. You know what I mean? So, and then slowly but surely we morphed into it. I did like a verse. It was open. I went back to the Studio P, and CeeLo was on it, and that completed the record. So that became the record. But yeah, just capturing the essence of Louisiana, man, with that.
So you had something to do with that, and I know you mentioned that your hands were behind some of the production ideas, a lot of tracks, because then it gets rich, because that's one of the simpler beats on it. But then you get a beat so rich, like Lil Papa Got a Brand New Bag, where you jumping into the funk guitar and just some deep bass grooves. Is that a live guitar player?
Happy was a guitar player. He played guitar, bass and lead guitar and other instruments. He was phenomenal. Beyond just beat making, he, like I said, he was a music connoisseur. He was a younger cat than me, and he was interested in the type of music that I listened to, Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd and Parliament and shit like that. So we fresh off the mothership with it, and like I say, I'm a DJ / producer. I'm a backroom boy, and I come out the backroom crates with that. And so that whole album, of course, in a Prince kind of way, I articulated and constructed it. And that those were the players that came in to help me stitch the Frankenstein together. So it was just a dream and a vision I had, and that was the soundtrack to it, basically. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah, because I heard, I've read in articles that you actually laid the foundation for the single, How You Do That there, and then he touched it up, and then Peace People came and touched it up. Is that true?
In that order, man, I'm the original producer. Idea, vision, the whole nine. I shared it with Hap help it enhance a few things, and by the time it got to No Limit,
Okay, so you're not somebody that comes out and broadcasts that, and you had lots of opportunity to do that. Why was it not something that you made widely known?
We was gutter kids, man, and the oath I made to those guys was if I got on, of course I helped them get on. Naturally. They was like little bros to me. So that was my thing. And later I would introduce them to CeeLo that had, a little bit more going on than what I did for as a label and all that at the time. But based on that, I was a foul guy. I wanted everybody to have they just do. So I didn't, know the rules of engagement and, what was producer credit, the separatism between the writer credit. As a writer, as a kid, I've been on copyrights and different things like that since like 14, 15 years old. So I knew how to protect my writer portion of the game, but I didn't know how to rightfully step in as a producer. It wasn't my equipment. I laid the foundation for the drums and the idea and the samples, and Hap played a few keyboard things on the top, and I just gave him that overall credit as the producer of that record. So by the time it reached Beats by the Pound and, a few other hands touched on it, they enhanced it, and due to everybody and, much love and respect, that enhanced that record and made it what it is today. It's a three-step program like you just broke down. But basically that, I'm the foundation and the structure of it, and again, the rest is history.
Man, so that means you just a musical, you're someone that music lives through you, because I heard you mention Jimi Hendrix a few times, and I can hear the influences. I'm listening to the instruments on The Last Outlaw. You said you were responsible for some of the samples. What's that on Ghost Rider? Is that the Halloween movie sample?
No, that's The Exorcist, actually.
The Exorcist, right? And then what's the movie clip sample on The Last Outlaw? What movie is that?
Young Guns. A lot of the Young Guns movie, the first Young Gun. Yeah.
Got you. And so you're responsible for all those samples, the Superfly samples?
Pretty much all but I want to say, you mentioned Lil Papa Got a Brand New Bag. That's really from the movie Penitentiary. And Hap really came up with that, and I love the track. I'm a 70s baby, so anything out from 70s, that old funk soul kind of style, and enhanced with a new age twist, they knew what to cater to me, what was a bleed type of beat, because I love that type of music. So he that was just one of the tracks that I picked from that he sampled from Penitentiary. Me and Max got on it, man. So I want to say, other than Time So Hard, Beats by the Pound produced like 3 tracks on that record. The rest is all Happy. You see what I'm saying? And what I co-host from the background. And you know, insinuated drums and different things. A lot of tracks, like The Day They Made Me Boss and Ghost Rider, was two songs I almost never made. I walked in the studio at the right time and realized he could play The Exorcist on the keyboard. I was like, man, that's The Exorcist. Man, put some drums to that shit. Let me fuck with that. They was laughing and joking that he could play it. Nah, I hear something different. As well as The Day They Made Me Boss. He was playing the, you know, the Italian kind of mob shit. I was like, that's the whole essence for, you know, go with my Corleone shit. Put some drums to that shit and give me a minute. Yeah, and the rest is history, man. So, yeah,
man, no, you just almost broke my heart, man. Those are my two favorite songs on the album. The fact that they almost didn't get made, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people, man. A lot of people in the world, man, their favorite joint. That's
What's the what is the scratch sample, the rap sample on the hook for Day They Make Me Boss? Where's that from?
It's from actually from a Lalo song, Max Manella, Javon, and Happy. Damn, what's the name of that song? It's on the original Concentration Camp album. That was their solo song to the world. And I sampled something out of there with Javon saying, interfere with my thoughts, get caught up in the rapture. You can't capture the kid crying boss that's laughing at you. Yeah, man. Yeah, I can't think of the title of that song. That's some of our favorite joints.
Okay, first joint. Okay, say no more. So yeah, you get that range. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Beats by the Pound contributions, because I think, you know, Moby Dick and KLC were like the foundational members, the core members of Beats by the Pound. They on there, but there's different areas, man. If you look where how you do that, there is credited different. There's someone named Craig B on that track sometimes.
Yeah, Craig Odell, and there's somebody I'm missing. I want to say it's if not 5-4 of those guys for sure. And you know, Fiend and other guys produced around that, man. Rico from Sons of Funk. You know, that was a phenomenal music machine, man. But Moby will rock the most, and KL and those other guys, and Craig beating them out, see in and out. So, but yeah, I had a nice short time just recording and going back and forth between our lab and their laboratory, man. So yeah, shouts out to well, you know, recently Medicine Men or whatever they doing nowadays. But yeah, Beats by the Pound. You know what I mean?
The second track also has Pimp C credited on production, Bring the Noise. How did that come about?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me, man. Rest in peace to Chad. Really, you know, when I say different things was going on at No Limit, what I learned that from him to some of your well-known producers, I want to say even DJ Khaled and KL was cool. Guys that come in and out of there and be working. So Pimp will come there and lay beats and different things for different projects for Pete. And the night before they turned in my record, I turned in like 14 records. I just worked kind of solo dolo within the camp and family, not sure of the connection and not an aim. You know, within this time while I was making my record, the deal was being birthed. Our connection with P was being birthed. So I didn't know I would have those guys on the record, none of that type of thing. So I didn't focus on anything to stop me. And that evolved. So I turned in a whole complete record, 14 songs. And we took 3 of those songs off to add P to it and the Beats by the Pound and the No Limit affiliation. But that was the thing, and no clicks. But that was just the evolution, what was going on. Not sure things, I kept working. And, you know, was open for compromise. But yeah, shouts out and rest in peace, you know, rest in heavenly peace to our brother, Chad Pimp C Butler. He had a record, he had a few tracks or something over there. And that was one of the tracks that Pete played for me and had an open third verse. And I was like, man, what's that? And he was like, you like that? I was like, yeah, he said you could have it. And that's how that got on the record. And Pimp C did talk about that before his demise, man. He was saying he was glad I got that record. And that's the only Pimp C and Young Bleed recorded track in history. We didn't get the vocally record together, even though we had plans of me signing with UGK Records. And like I said in a previous interview, he wanted to produce my own, but I was at the end of my own. You know what I mean? I was trying to put him short on time and money, right? When he moved to Atlanta, Short was out there. There was a lot of shit that's behind the scenes, you know. By the time the people get the records, they think it's the 5 minutes of fame. But that's the evolution and the reason I ended up with that record. Rest in peace to the Pimp.
Yeah, I read somewhere in another interview you did that he said he would do the whole album for you for $10K, but you had already done it.
It was already done. And I was like, ah, shit, pimp, we gonna get together. We have been aiming at each other. We gonna do some more shit. But let me complete my priorities to priority, turn this shit in, and let's get on some more shit. And then through the course of life, man, you never know.
It's all good. And I know you mentioned Odell. Odell did the More Money.
Yeah, the More Money trip.
On just the production alone, on a scale from 1 to 5 heartbeats.
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, I give it a 5, man, for the books, man, and what the world say, man. It's a beautiful thing. I appreciate that. But yeah, top 5, man. My Michael Jackson Thriller, so far, so good. Yeah.
There we go. So we're going into Dimension 2, where we talk about the cohesiveness of the album, how much it flows together. Now, in your opinion, how you feel about the flow of this album? You got Odell, you got Pimp C, Craig B, KLC, Moby Dick, and Happy Perez, who we spent a lot of time talking about. How do you feel they all put this together, or in the sequencing? Who's the executive producer on this?
In a lot of senses, you'll want to say CeeLo and Master P, but I'm first, third to that. When I say that, as far as being an artist person, taking creative control of the situation, it's a vision I had, and what I try to do when I'm making any song or any record, I make it to where it's visual, videographic, what I call lyrical graffiti when I'm writing, you know what I mean? So I already have a vision of what I want that thing to succumb to, and that's the whole thing. So I did a whole lot of behind the scenes other than the upfront rapping. So when I'm saying first and third to it, front seat, and I catch a back seat, and everybody as far as the contribution and compromise. It's a beautiful thing, but based on that, the flow of it, the only thing I would say to it, it's like I mentioned earlier, I turned it in, and a lot like Prince, I write, arrange, compose a lot of my own music and so on and so forth. So I had a structure the way I wanted it to unfold. But by the time, we had to reach the level of compromise between, the powers that be, so to say, number 1 and number 2 wasn't supposed to be in that order. I get ridiculed for this all around the world. The song number 3, The Offer You Can't Refuse. Everybody like, man, why is that song so short? It really was made to be an introduction to who I was in the world I was walking everybody into. So that's why it's sitting that placement on the record. But other than that, when the world heard it, keep it real with the country boy swing and banjo in it was the perfect substitute. So I had to think outside of myself and see how everybody else heard it. And when everybody reached that level of compromise and it was in agreement, then the rest is history. Yeah.
Man, and this is why it's so important to have the artists here and you hear from the horse's mouth itself. Because as a listener, man, I always thought, I was like, man, the album don't start to me until An Offer You Can't Refuse. I can tell that was the intro. That's the mood. That's the whole tone. You getting taken into the Young Bleed zone. Soon it almost felt like, all right, we got to get the No Limit features out the way and let y'all know we affiliated. And now it's the Young Bleed show. But,
and pretty much like that, man. Like I said, we was 2 different branches, no clicks on the in between. But that was my focus, because when we started, it was way before we knew No Limit and all that. So I had a plan since a child what I wanted to do once I reached that resume. You know what I mean, or that plateau platform. But that's just what it is. You're a real listener to music and music connoisseur for that matter, and you recognize that, and that's just what it was. So that's why the structure is like that. Without us sitting all in the same room, I did with the count. In the last few songs, I went on over to No Limit and record. You see what I'm saying? That we had to rearrange the structure. So that's what that is.
That makes sense. That and it doesn't mess it up, but it becomes, to somebody who knows, like you said, somebody who listens. I do this, and I'm like, okay, now it starts. And I love what you said about the compromise being keep it real, because it still gets you off to a real subtle start. You don't have another song that's subtle anywhere else on the album. So it's like, all right, we're gonna start light, and by the time you get to the end and we don't stop, it's like, okay, we ending on a little crunk note or a little bounce note, I guess. Is that considered like early Louisiana bounce?
When you say bounce, I give all that credit to New Orleans. See, we didn't make bounce music in Baton Rouge. You see what I'm saying? It was a different thing. Maybe a few guys on the lower end But MC Nero, rest in peace, kind of, sort of, you know what I mean? Probably was the closest that we had to that type of music, but we had a different structure. I mean, you know, you go city to state and all the country towns on the in between, everybody got their own thing. So New Orleans being 45 minutes, being the Mecca of Louisiana, for the more action-packed, you know, city that don't sleep, you know, they had their own thing. So we wasn't trying to mimic us. That was true rappers and MCs, and really trying to reach that New York plateau. You know, we was spitting from a under lesser, you know what I mean, in that sense, but trying to reach higher. We was aiming at New York to be lyrically respected, and we ain't just country down here and it's like we can't rap. You know what I mean? Some of us went with what was going on in the country town, but some of us we spitting. You know what I mean? So we, you know, our particular camp was based like that. Everybody that was there is hitters and spitters, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now I'm from New York, so like I'm glad you said it. We gonna talk about that when we get into category 2, the lyrical breakdown. But like, I'm glad you said you answering a lot of my questions, man. Just that I always had since '98 in my head. So on the cohesiveness, what you give this album on a scale from 1 to 5?
Me personally, you know, I learned to accept it. How it roll, I give it a 5 as well. But in the beginning, I would say a 4 because of what my personal structure was, and that's personal. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, classic rock.
That's the politics of being an artist and being on a label. You got different hands in the pot. People got different ideas, and the compromise is the final result. So,
right.
Got you. That takes us to dimension 3. Now this is a little bit more nuanced, man. It's the idea. What was the mood and the tone that you were trying to set on the album?
I used to always say, you know, I lived like a young Superfly. When the new movie came out, I was like, I always wanted to play that role. You know what I mean? Superfly being one of my favorite movies of all time, as well as the soundtrack. You know, Curtis Mayfield, and Ron O'Neal, man. So, you know, here again, I'm a 70s baby. So when you look back at those first black superheroes that we had before, you know, Superman, it was Superfly. It was those guys that was somebody in the neighborhood, in the community. So to see him different than Scarface, the Tony Montana movie, died, you know, for everything you work for and get murdered, he was the guy that made it out the game. You see what I'm saying? So that always been my life structure, let alone my music structure. So as well as he didn't sing a note, Curtis Mayfield in the background was his theme music. So I always try to capture that type of essence on records to where a lot of movies I watch, if it wasn't for the mood music, you know what I mean, if I could say it like that, then it's, you know, it's a blank pitch. You know what I mean? I just recently did an unreleased song called No Music. I got a Sade sample in it, you know what I mean? But I always said, I was driving in traffic one day, early in the morning. I'm the type of guy, I'm gonna try to go to the mall when it closed, if I gotta get in and out, not be harassed and held up if I'm on that type of mission. Right. I was up early in the morning, and you know, I was riding a 93 Suburban, you know, nice system and all that kind of shit. And I had my music, I was in my own zone with the windows up. I stopped at a red light and something say, you know, put the window down and cut your music off and listen to the world. And I listened how peaceful it could be, but how boring the world could be with no music. You see what I'm saying? So I always said I wanted to do a song, say I wondered what the world would be like with no music. So I finally created that, and I'll release it in the near future. But that type of thing. So I always try to, you know, I'm a sound mind, man. So all the time I used to beatbox about anything of music, rap and the hip hop culture, pop lock and break dancing, battles, all that kind of shit. I was doing that at elementary school as well as middle school, and into my career. So, you know, I wanted to capture that type of thing, man, and you know, capture a soundtrack to my life, sort of say. So that's what that whole structure about when you're talking that album. And at the time, that's the way I was living.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with you, how old were you when this album dropped?
23 years old. Yeah.
23. What comes through is this like young wisdom. Every generation, you only get a few rappers that come up and have that youthful wisdom. You know, I think Nipsey is one of them rappers that had that, where he's a little old, wise before his years.
Yes, sir.
And so you were
young
speaking like someone who's seen it all and heard it all. That's what I got as a listener from it. I'm like, man, this man is coming from an observer perspective, but then still talking about his inner monologue through a lot of these songs.
Yes, sir. Exactly that. Like you say, nip, pop. You know, it's a trend of us, and blessed with the gift, what I call young OGs, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, young guys with old souls. You know what I mean? As well as the girls. You know what I mean? Not being biased, but saying that to say this. Yeah, you know, credit to my grandparents and great grandparents. You know, mothers and fathers. That type of thing, man. I was the type of kid, my granddaddy was a blind man, his mother was blind, you know, at a certain time, they wasn't born that way. But I was one of the most trusted kids they kept around. That was the CNI dog. So I got all their game and all their wisdom when I was trying to run off and play. Now I wish they were still here, you know, and still did back then. But everything they was telling me, I wish I could get some more of it. And spiritually I do, and that's what you hear come out in these records. You know, I'm raised off that old black Chinese and Indian ancient wisdom, man. You know what I mean? These southern grandmothers and grandfathers out here, man. So, yeah, I keep it preserved. You know what I mean?
The other impression I got, man, is that there's a leadership there, and for those who didn't know that you were one of the leaders of the concentration camp, but there's also, I'm gonna lay back and let other people shine, because your crew is all over it. So on the No Limit end, you play your position there. You're like, yeah, I come at the end of the track, or I come in the middle of the track. And then on all the concentration camp click songs, you know, you got them on there a lot. And so it also feels like I'm loyal to the soil, and I'm laid back too. I don't need all the light, but here's who's on here with me.
You have to look at it like you're looking at a motion picture. Pimp C said it the best. He said, man, I ain't trying to be the best rapper. I'm a good character. So I know if when you're looking at a Denzel Washington movie or whoever your favorite actor might be, he not on the screen. If there are always two movies, you don't see just him. It's other people in the movie. He know how to play his part. Get in where you, like Short say, get in where you fit in. You know what I'm saying? So I know how to play my part. Get in, don't wear out your welcome, get the fuck out. The DOC used to say, you know, when he say he was structuring Snoop and teaching them what bars was, say Snoop could rap and freestyle his ass off, but when it came to rhyme and song structure, like 50 Cent used to tell the gang, when you're making a song, bro, I ain't in no competition with nobody. It's not a rap battle. I want to make a good song, so I'm gonna sit there and tick for tack, you know, stitch this together like it's supposed to go. Right now, I want some horns. Right now, I want some female vocals. And that's how you really produce and create a song. A lot of guys, and I say this for the record, they call themselves producers as composers. You might know how to make music, but you don't know how to structure a whole entire song. And that's the thing, from the first millisecond to the end of it. So I try to specialize in that and learn it from the greatest pioneers in the game and all music genres. So, you know, I try to keep it like that. Yeah.
Got you. So on a scale from 1 to 5, how much would you say you accomplished your mission of trying to set that mood and tone? 5
5+, you know what I mean? I used to say this, if I can get in the game and go gold, then, you know, and then if I can go gold, I can go platinum. Now keeping in mind, Rewinding the Tape we spoke earlier in 97, coming off the Body soundtrack, that's a double if not triple platinum album to this day. So really I was platinum before gold. And I debuted gold and whatever happened with the companies. I went gold in 3 weeks. So imagine we talking 25 years later. If the game ain't changed, if we're still buying tangible records, and you know, it's still available on the internet. So you do the math to that, you know what I mean? I'm past the underground platinum point to #1 Billboard with that record at the top of 1998. I say everybody exists in the music business, I at least stood before a beat so far as accomplishing that. If Michael Jackson was still here, and you name them, you see what I'm saying? So that's a major accomplishment from a small guy from a small town called Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Yes, sir.
So, and so when you get the feedback on this album, you feel like they got what you were trying to put across?
Yeah. But my thing here again on a personal, it's like, y'all like this, and wait till I finish this other shit. You see what I'm saying? You like that? Oh man, I'm just mumbling, man. I ain't even got started. Dad used to tell me that, shouts out to the dog crime. They believe you just getting started. I feel like, man, what are you talking about? I've been doing this shit as a child. But I understand that. Same as Moby used to tell me, man, this rap shit is easy. I just say, man, what you talking about? I was offended. You know what I mean? He said, you gotta want it. And I had to learn what that means. You don't have a desire, it's not in you. You know what I mean? Versus being on you, then yeah, you know, it's a whole nother blood fire right there.
Nice. I like that. It ain't in you versus being on you. That takes us to dimension 4. We talk about the song distinction versus the repetition factor. So and when we talk about repetition on the album, it's the words and the sounds. I think we spent a lot of time talking about the sounds because Happy was in his bag and giving you, you know, funk on one track. You had a little Dr. Dre-ish kind of sound on Confetti. Last Outlaws, his own little box. Ghost Rock, none of the songs really get a chance to sound like each other. You get in so many different chambers and pockets that y'all tapping into. I don't know if there's a lot of repetition beat-wise. So lyrically, with your words, I know there's some things you repeated on purpose because it was kind of your thing. So I wanted to run through some of your catchphrases and ask you what the story was behind them. So one, my nigga, my nerve. What's that?
That's a way, man. We really had an OG out here, and we all just talk, you know, in regular terms out here, my nigga. You know what I mean? Just talking, but we used to have OG. We used to call nigga, and that's all he used to do with this. Nigga, my nigga, boo, 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 boo. You know what I mean? That kind of shit out our neighborhood. So you pick up shit from these old men, drunk winos, dope fiends, and all that, just for us collectivizing on a life game. You see what I'm saying? I'm talking family out into that. So I grew around a lot of them kind of old hustle players and chess players, dice shooters. So any aspect of it, yeah, you know, I picked up some of their terminology. You know what I mean? So, you know, shouts out to him, OG. And, you know, just something we said, my nigga, my nerve. You know what I mean? Yeah, you my dog, my nerve. I feel you, you feel me. So that's the whole definition behind that. If I say that to you, that means that's my nerve. You fuck with him, you gotta fuck with me. Cause I'ma feel a certain way about it. Just off the life, love, street brotherhood and loyalty, man. That's how we grew and raised around these parts, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's hella deep. All right, so then full of that weed. That kind of became like the ending line on a lot of your verses, full of that weed.
Yeah. That was a trademark. I remember meeting Snoop, and Snoop said, I love the way you say that. And it's just common talk for us around here. But everybody knew, you know, streetwise and otherwise, you know, 9 times out of 10, I was always the weed man, and I always stayed high. The old ladies in the neighborhood said, there go that boy that's always high. You know, I got naturally sleeping looking eyes, so rather I'm high, not I look high. So you know what I mean? So that just, you know, it became the weed man terminology for me. You see what I'm saying? And I just learned how to coerce it as far as putting it in a rhyme structure. And, you know, took a chance with it, and, you know, everybody ran with it, you know?
So that was on purpose. That was supposed to be like the trademark phrase right there. All right, I read that Jelly Jam and Preserve is something you got from your grandmother.
Yeah, man. Out here in West California, a few other places, you know, naturally, you know, fruits and vegetables grow in the garden or grow in the yard, depending on where your house was. So we had peppers in the yard. One house, when I lived with my mother and father, young, we had a tangerine tree in the yard, you know what I mean, a Chinese plum tree. My grandmother had a fig tree and a pear tree. And in the form of that level of fruit, you know, old school wise, she kept them old mason jars, so she'll make her own syrups and, you know, jams and jellies and different things like that. Now, I wasn't a favorite of the fig, you know what I mean, but I knew what it means to jelly, jam, and preserve something in a mason jar, you know what I mean, and make you a jelly. So I got that, you know, fresh out the kitchen with my grandma, or rest in peace. Matter of fact, yesterday was my son's birthday. My oldest son turned 31. Ty Dramont, son of the Don. Y'all look him up and subscribe to his page. Do the hip hop and R&B, part of Trapdoor Entertainment, my first artist. But the day before, December 8th, is the death of my grandmother when I was 18 years old. And that's the lady that had me in Sweet Home Baptist Church, man, singing in the choir as a kid. So a whole lot of, you know, my evolution, it come from a lot of places. It wasn't one thing. It's the home of the gumbo pot. That's just how I kind of grew. I got a little bit here, a little bit there. with her being the mother of my mother, you know, goddess and queen of the earth, man. Rest in peace, Ora Johnson, man. So yeah, true life.
Ooh. All right, the very last one, of course, your most famous one. Hot nigga say what?
Nigga what? That's a quick term to when shit go wrong on the street block. You know what I mean? Huh? Motherfucker say that, huh? Motherfucker, I heard what you said. You think I'm stupid, but it's huh? And the nigga what is the second indication, and it ain't gonna be a third time if you get past them two, man. So the first time is warning, like, hey, don't try that shit with me. And how nigga what? You ain't hit me the first time. And you know, 3 strikes rule, 3 strikes out. But that's a common terminology around these parts, and I'm sure a whole lot of parts. You know what I mean? So yeah, that part.
So that was similar to Full of That Weed. That was another one that you were intentionally trademarking as your calling card.
And C-Loc had a nice local regional I say hit song that was called How What. So that's how we talk. How bruh, you know what I mean? When all that was evolving between here in New Orleans and around the world. You know, everybody talk the same but yet different. So that's how we talk. Huh, bruh, I agree with what you saying. Huh, nigga, what? What the fuck? What you mean? You know what I mean? You gotta tell me that shit again. So that was one of them things, but he had a nice record. And what I try to do when I'm morphing as a writer, just like a DJ, I'm gonna pull bits and pieces from here and there. If I like your record and got respect for you as an artist and an MC, I might use a line or I might use a piece of the beat or something because it inspired me, and that's what it's supposed to do. So that record, How What, is one of my favorite records from C-Lo, and I just took to flip what he did to keep us going. You know what I mean? I'm gonna continue off from his How What to How Nigga What. You know, I'm gonna suck the emotion. But that was the thing, you know what I mean? Pretty much.
Got you. Yeah, I'm thankful to get the straight up facts on all of those, because I was like, okay, this got to be on purpose. So outside of those phrases that you were like intentionally repeating and get people familiar with your style, what would you say about the repetition on this album? Was there any, or do you feel like you started getting a little lazy with the writing and you might have said some of the same things?
No, never that. You know, it's all travel for me. 48 going on 49 years of my life on the planet. You see what I'm saying? So it's time capsule. So I'ma always give you my roots and rudiments, but I'ma tell you what this new movie I saw, this new shit, what I'm doing nowadays. You see what I'm saying? So it's a constant travel straight ahead. You know, each record I do is like a new chapter to a book. You know, just, you know, the audio visual eventually. You get the videos and so forth. That's right.
So for this album, repetition of 5 means it wasn't repetitive at all. 1 means it was super repetitive. What you give this?
5 means you say without it being repetitive. Like you mentioned earlier, you know, what I try not to do, and I might simulate certain things, but you hadn't, like you mentioned, you hadn't heard 2 tracks that sounded like. I want to do what Max Manella say, do better than the last time. This record is jamming, wait till we do the next. Wait till we do the next, and it's a steady climb up the hill. Then eventually when the sun go down, I'll go down with it. But while I'm still evolving and trying to reach my ultimate goal and plateau, yeah, it's up and away, you hear?
Gotcha. Dimension 5, we talk about the amount of content versus the amount of songs. So in hip hop, it ain't uncommon to get these 20-track albums and the rapper ain't talking about a damn thing, ain't taking nowhere. It's just whatever they came up with in the studio. So your album has 14 tracks. On this channel, we talk a lot about the magic numbers for a classic, where you really don't want to go beyond 14 because you run the risk of having a lot of songs that, and it becomes inevitable. People gonna skip some. It's less of a, we talk about the Thriller number. Michael Jackson's Thriller, Nas Illmatic, those are 10-track albums. It's hard to hate the song. Now I know you got albums that go to like 18 tracks and 17. I don't listen to your whole discography, so you know, I know you did that later in your career, but on this, you in that super safe zone. It's 14 tracks. Do you feel like you gave them enough things that you were talking about, enough subject matter on a 14-track album?
For that album and that time frame and that time capsule, yeah, absolutely. You see what I'm saying? What I learned later, once I started the tour, if you riding however many hours, you know what I mean, on the road, what I try to do, like watching a DVD or what have we, hold you down for at least an hour or better. So I started saying, you know, for dope boys and rap boys, you know what I mean, and tour people alike, or people that travel. If I got somewhere to be in an hour or two, if I put on a certain record, I know at the end of that record I came, you know, succumbed to an hour. You see what I'm saying? So I try to make it for riders. You know, we more got slab riders down this way. So you going back and forth and you want to put something on, and here, and keeping in mind here again, you know, I try to make a record like a motion picture. Rather I do a video or not. I want to make it lyrically vivid enough to where I take you on this journey. And it's like I'm in the car with you, you in the car with me. So in that same sense, I try to give the people what they pay for. You know, I think Pac said it before, man, you know, $12 for a record, you know, it's like $1 a song, but it costs more to, you know, like King T would say years ago, buy the record because the studio costs. It costs more to produce and create this record. So I try to please, you know, that supply and demand, and take care of the consumer and give people what they pay for, you know what I mean? But nowadays, our attention span going back like old record days. Robert Johnson, those guys that was making 2-minute records. You know, I go to the club and you'll hear the DJ play one verse. They don't even play 2-3 songs. You go back to Too Short, we mentioned the Short early, and you got 4-5 verses, man, and 20 or better bars. You see what I'm saying? So everything that kind of reduced. So I done went back to that format, like 11, 13 songs is a good rough. But what I always end up getting into is this. Once you start the chemistry and the takeoff is Wi-Fi, and you don't know where it's gonna go. And sometimes you got too many good records. Like I'm sitting on this compilation right now that's reintroducing my label, Trapdoor Entertainment. Shout out to everybody that's on it around the country. And phenomenal artists, underground artists that have teamed up with me in support of and pushing the ball from different states, cities, and sections. But we got too much music. So, you know, back then at a Pac level, I remember 8 Ball, I want to say the only one, if I'm not mistaken, did like a 3 album, you know what I mean?
Yeah, triple disc, yeah.
Triple disc. But Pac, you have to be at a certain magnitude to where the people is willing to go spend that per $25 or whatever. And like I said, we're not even talking about buying CDs anymore. You still got that. I'm still out the trunk, you know, a hand in both games. But in this digital world, you know what I mean? The attention span, and like you say, you don't want to overdo it, and you don't want to underdo it as well. You see what I'm saying? So I try to stay somewhere on that good in between, unless I reach a certain plateau and a certain demand. And just to keep, you know what I mean, keep everything coming. Like I say, dealing with so many people, artists alike. I'm a constant creator again. We got infinite music, so it's trying to find the right outlet, the right presentation and orientation to present it and make sure every song, every artist, and every album get it just due. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. I know you took them to some places, and we're gonna talk more about that as we go further. But you know, you said for the time and for the amount of songs on this particular album, you feel like it wasn't the imbalance.
Nah, it wasn't. Actually, I was really holding the record up because I was, you know, everybody was saying, man, just finish the record. And I was like, I want to do some more, I want to do this, that, and the other. And then, you know, to take off and to run with, you know, after a while, then I put my gun down. I was, okay, I see this. You know, as far as just growing here again from a local regional standpoint into the world all of a sudden. And from that to learn how the other side clicks. So, you know, I was able to, okay.
All right, so on a scale from 1 to 5, we talking about 14 tracks and subject matter. What you giving this?
Yeah, I give it a 5. It's it's one of those classic movies. You know what I mean? I go far as calling it a movie. You can close your eyes and listen to it. And back to back, you know, everybody I heard, you know, and I got friends in Australia, all around the world, man, and just, you know, the repertoire to that shit to this day is incredible. You know what I mean? I knew it was gonna be a big record, but how long it would last, you know what I mean? To be what's the word we always say, relevant, you know what I mean, in this day and time, and in the world of hip hop and the whole culture and a different, you know, language, foreign language and so on and so forth. Yeah, I gotta get at a 5. Absolutely.
All right. That takes us to Dimension 6. We done touched on this a little bit already. Features, man. Features, they can help an album or they can hurt an album. Too many can bring it down and dilute it. Too few can make it too monotonous. And so you got a lot of features on this. A lot of the same folk. So, from the concentration camp, you got the whole camp on there. CeeLo was on there a bunch of times. This is when y'all was in full effect. A lot of the tracks kind of have statements on it like, oh, if you like this, wait till you hear everybody else out the camp coming next. So you were one of the biggest albums out the gate representing the camp, right? So you have Lee Time on there. You got Lay Low, which consisted of Javon and Max Minnelli, right?
Yeah.
And then you got a lot of tracks where it's just Max Minnelli himself, and a lot of tracks where it's just CeeLo.
Yeah.
And somebody, you got somebody that's family to you that's a part of that camp too, right?
Yeah, my brother Lucky Knuckle.
There we go. Who is that's singing on Confetti?
That's CeeLo singing on Confetti, as a matter of fact. That's him singing.
I knew it. I knew it. That's crazy. And then from the No Limit end, you got Mystical on here. You got P on about 4 tracks. I think all the No Limit tracks P is featured on. And then you got Fiend and Moby Dick.
Yeah.
Am I leaving anybody out?
Nah, that's it in a nutshell. P was actually on the 3 No Limit tracks they did. He was on Keep It Real, which was a Happy Perez track. So I think it's 4 tracks, yeah. That P on. How You Do That, Keep It Real, Bring the Noise, and what am I missing? Keep It Real, Bring the Noise, How You Do That, and yeah, he wasn't on More Money. See, they produced More Money, but he didn't rap More Money.
Time So Hard.
Yeah, and Time So Hard, yeah. Moby Dick did his singing on Time So Hard, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, now here's where I get a little critical. I will say, I think you were mentioning some of those No Limit features were last minute. It kind of seemed not as cohesive as concentration camp features. And so like Mystical, like when he comes on, he's a little off beat. He don't really catch his stride until the end. And P's verses sometimes a hit or miss. And I think he did his best work on how you do that there. But then he does his hook over your hook. You saying, your original hook to that song, and he's shouting out the states. And was that meant to overlap like that, or was that just something they did in the remix?
Well, I get stones thrown at me in the South, man, behind that. A lot of people say, man, you should have never let P get on the record and so on and so forth, but I understood what P did in time. I felt the same way I felt and the way it was always stepping on my art. But the way what it took to promote that, it took me to go away to Kentucky. Shout out to the Stupid Crew that told me, say, man, you the only one to ever say Kentucky on the record, Louisville. He said, yes, Kentucky. So I realized, in all those places that I go to this day, everybody think that was my aim, but I get credit where credit is due. And with him doing that planted a seed in all those cities and states, and especially the cities and states that wasn't being recognized. So far as I tell P, he one of the greatest entrepreneur niggas I know. Great business. But far as the artistry, a lot of people like the original, A Fool, which was titled A Fool. Once P took it and ran with it, they was calling the record How You Do That there because of the hook. That originally wasn't the title. It's really off some King T, Act a Fool. You know what I mean? Again, I'm out of break. So my whole construction to it, I had an idea to it, but once they took it and, was beyond my means and the world fired back, like, okay, they accepted it before I really presented it the way I wanted to present it and shoot the video the whole 9, but it worked. So I didn't go against the grain, you know what I mean? But yeah, basically that.
A lot of the members of the concentration camp were younger. So you were like the mentor guiding them through the game. Yeah.
They used to joke with me and call me, who that is? Splinter from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, man. I'm not like the old Master Monk, man, for us the style and just being a living legend at a young age, just since rap battling since elementary school, since the 4th grade. So in the town, where Baton Rouge is now, you know what I mean? NBA Youngboy being one of the #1 rappers and some family to me, down the line on Baby Mamas. But him and Boosie as well, Kevin Gates, wherever you name them. But what it became at a time, that wasn't happening. There was a few rappers, shouts out to Kuiper, Wise, you know what I mean, Reality, and all those guys that had records, Silker Slim, the Wrecking Crew out the neighborhood. But like Pac say, thug life always existed. I just diagnosed it. So, you know, I bought the BET and all that for us to pivot. But off those guys' rudiment that led me and got me to a certain point than where it is now. But like I said at the time, yeah, it wasn't, nobody really wasn't looking for Baton Rouge. If you came to Louisiana, you was looking for New Orleans. Then eventually, you know what I mean, the lights turned this way. So, you know,
Is it fair to say that you and Max Minnelli was the most lyrical out the crew?
I would say me, him, and Jay Vaughn for Jump Off.
Okay.
Lyrically, you know what I mean, on the lyrical, just straight off the dome, freestyle battle MCs, we was them kind of guys, you know what I mean? / street in particular. And those guys being my younger brothers, you know what I mean? Coming out of high school, I try to keep them away from a whole lot of shit that they eventually grow into as men. But in no comparison, but the Lucky Knuckles and the Growl Nitties were more kind of street-based lyrical rappers, super dope. But more body in that sense than brain, and on the turf in that sense. You see what I'm saying? Those guys, they was young. And they was coming in and just getting their feet on the turf. I was the perfect in between. Well, it's local, you know, with street prone. It was more them street effort rappers. Wasn't a battle thing. I always was that kid, way before I knew all of those guys. Shouts out to Darian Williams at 9 years old in the 4th grade. You know, I didn't start solo. That's my homie to this day. And he just went a different route streetwise. And I had one foot that way, but one foot still pursuing hip hop. You know, they call Louisiana the dream state. I always say that. So I still hadn't been to New York, and I got New York partners as Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick, and rest in peace to Biz. I done had the honor and privilege of meeting, and the list go on and on that I done met living in Virginia for about a year. They come through DC, and I went through Philly. You know what I mean? To see them in shows like that, man. It just, you know, as far as christening of hip hop and just a spark of life, as far as that's concerned. But yeah, my brother, I'm a million ways, but yeah, we was more, I say that, we was the most lyrical based one. If you wanted to battle, Low wouldn't battle you. My brother might not growl about it, you know what I mean? Growl was a real live, all the way live 5150 street guy, but dope as fuck on that microphone. There's certain shit I tell him, you can't say that. If he murdered you, he talked about it. Now, you can't put that out in a dope ass way, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, that type of shit, man. So yeah, I would say that for us the pivot, or the arrowhead for us piercing the culture of hip hop in lyrical way. Yeah, me, Max Minnelli, and Jay Vaughn. You know, don't sleep on Lee. So everybody, like I say, was dope in their own chamber. You know what I mean? And not taking
collectively, y'all was still bringing something that we hadn't heard coming, especially in different markets, right? You consider New York ears and West Coast ears, you know, they only getting what's being filtered to them through the South. The South was relatively new on the mainstream level to hip hop. This is what they started calling the Southern explosion, especially when P came out. So, I mean, y'all were bringing, you know, structure, flow, patterns, and all this. Like when you listen to, in particular, Lil Papa Got a Brand New Bag, you just let Max Minnelli go off, man. His verse longer than yours, you let him just kill that. And I'm like, okay, I see what they do. This the same type of stuff Wu-Tang was doing when they wanted to introduce somebody and let them shot. They let them get the long verse, you know? So
that's a great comparison. We used to say that we was like a Southern Wu-Tang in that sense, with more than just 2 MCs, 3 MCs. You know, I go back to, you know, the Funky 4+1, Fantastic 5, the Cold Crush Crew. So, you know, I'm out the crazy MC Shan tape since a kid. So, you know, I've been looking at that structure. And by the time Wu-Tang had evolved, we was evolving, and it wasn't just no and you know, I could, you know, go as far as saying no limit on the level of MCing. It wasn't just about the one MC and the one DJ, you know, that type of thing. So we have morphed into that. We was talking about something earlier I wanted to mention. Well, my record, you know, your debut to the world, you go back to hip hop, other than those crews, if you were solo, you really didn't have no features. You see what I'm saying? So that's my structure, my build process. But that was my aim to do a record, you know, make myself the best solo artist that I could, a rapper for that matter. And, you know, true talented MC, I can go far as saying. But with that different evolution and how the South was selling records and different things, we learn to combine. You know what I mean? If you got 5 fans, I got 5, let's 10 together. So a lot of shit is off the trunk and just same but different evolution for us. New York and most similar to California on a street base, and just like I say, that off the trunk game, where you could make a record and go sell it on the same street corner you sell dope out there. Yeah.
As a rapper, you can always pick up on other rappers and when they're using, you know, a certain amount of effort. And so I say, you know, everybody played their position. I'm glad you broke it down the way you broke it down, because you can tell CeeLo comes from a more a kind of basic space. There are about 2 tracks on here where he gets in his flow pocket. I think on Pull It Off and Confetti, CeeLo, it rides that beat really nicely. But for the most part, it's just like every time you and Laylo Click get on, it's just to say y'all start. And we'll get into that in the next dimensions. But as far as the features helping the album or hurting the album, on a scale from 1 to 5, what do you give it? 5 means they definitely helped all the way. 1 is they kind of hurt it.
Yeah. I give it a 5. I say everybody helped it. Everybody helped it. Like I said, I don't have no complaints from beginning to end. And then, especially due to how it was laid, because at the time, when you listen to a song like We Don't Stop, you hear Max Manelli, the very last song all over the record. That's because we was into our NWA and shit, you know what I mean? We was breaking apart. And after a while, I didn't even come back around to finish the record. My inspiration had died. See, when that vibe and the brotherhood, and that whole circumference is not there, then when you're trying to filter out, it has a tendency to do something to you. So my inspiration wasn't there going toward the end of that album. So it's like a slow drag and a pull. So with everybody else pulling together, Maximum actually completed that last song. You see what I'm saying? And we put it together, and eventually, man, you know, Loc straight apart, unfortunately, still to this day, you know what I mean, due to bad business deals and structure and choices and situations. So, you know, unfortunately, again, you know, it turned out like that, and I wanted to keep that chemistry. So if any regrets, you know, and I can't really, you know, I ain't pointing no fingers to begin with, but let alone self-center myself. In that sense, life goes on. So, you know, that's the whole structure. And like I say, salute and shouts out to all those guys, everybody that contributed that record to get it out to the world, because it almost didn't happen. So many stories, you know?
I appreciate your honesty with that too, man. You mentioned 7 is the most controversial, the weakest song. What is the weakest song on the album, or the weakest songs, and do they bring it down? Like I said, you know, everybody has a track that they might skip, a track or 2 that they might skip, but that doesn't always mean that the song is trash. Now, are there songs on this album that you feel bring the quality of it down?
To me, the very last song, you know what I mean? It's some people's favorite song, the We Don't Stop record. I wanted to do a little bit more emphasis. You know, that was like, you know, I always wanted to rap to the Paul Revere drum. So we used them in that, but the way they came out is cool, but I wanted to do a little bit more, you know what I mean? So, and like I say, at that time at Tyranny, I wasn't coming around to finish that song complete. So you got my verses, Max do the hook, intro and outro. All you got really is the beat of my verses, and that's all I did to that record. So if anything, I didn't get to put my whole 110% in that one song on the record, but it was still accepted and taken by the public. Actually, a brother of mine, Chris Waters, out the Valley Park area out this way, was telling me, he tell me that every time he see, he gonna sing that, We Don't Stop, The Last Outlaw He Loved, just the other records. He tell me the same shit here. Everybody know how you do that there. But if you really listen to that record, everybody got their favorite songs like Ghost Rider, The Day That Made Me Fall. There's good underground classic hits that didn't reach that TV plateau. You see what I'm saying? So, but everything else, I gave my extra effort, and due to the deterioration of the camp and so on and so forth, yeah, I just did my 3 verses to that record. So if any one of them, I would say that.
I wanted to ask you how much time it passed between the recordings of songs, because you said by the time you recorded that, things with the crew had gone some way. I know you said the No Limit edition, some of those were put together at the end. And then I hear a track like Mo Money, which to me you know, I usually don't put my opinion in this, but since we having real talk, I think Mo Money is my least favorite because not because of the spin, because everybody's doing their thing rhyme wise. The beat though, it sounds a little outdated for 1998. It sounds like something that would have been on a Ghetto Boys album in the early 90s.
Well, I tell you the true story to that. Like I say, I turned in the record complete. It's 3 songs that the world never heard, and it's maybe in the C-Log or Happy Archives or something, you know what I mean? But one night, I was waking up by my manager, shouts out to Uncle Paulie, the Corleone family concentration camp, C-Log record. He told me we had to go to No Limit studio, which I didn't know at the time. I was just figuring out that they had stationed in Baton Rouge. So we got to go, you know, finish whatever we got to do to turn in the record. Pete turned in the record tomorrow. So I didn't get a heads up or nothing. So I left the house, beanie on, wire hair, went straight to the studio. And that night was the night I recorded the verse for Bring the Noise, Mo Money, and Time So Hard. All in the same night, you know what I mean? But I took Laylo with me, my brother Lucky Knuckles. And my brother have an ongoing, outgoing thing with jail. Either going to jail when I'm making a record or just coming home. You see what I'm saying? That type of shit. So I did whatever to make sure I try to always include him in all the records. You know what I mean? To show him this side of the game. You know, he's just as well talented, but you know, until it's paying you, you're gonna keep that one foot in the street. You know, that's how we come up. But I wanted to put him on another song on the record, thinking at the time maybe that he wasn't even on the record before I thought about he on Pull It Off. Or them the 2 songs that I made sure he got on the record. So Mo Money, Pete called me through and wanted to substitute or whatever the 3 songs. So I told you to Bring the Noise story. Time So Hard was a record. They really sampled Anita Baker, and I think she denied the sample. She wouldn't release the sample. So Mo replayed, you know what I mean? Him and Beats by the Pound, he didn't produce that track by himself. And that's how that came about. Another open third verse. Mo Money, we needed another track. So I picked the beat from
Odell,
one of them guys or something like that. And with those guys, yeah, you know what I mean? So we wrote right then and recorded that song, you know, just to include my brother more importantly than anybody. And a track that I had Laylo on together. You know, my promise to those guys, if I got on since the beginning, I'm gonna do what I can to help get y'all on. You know what I mean? So in that sense, Javon, Max Manelli, and Lucky Knuckles, that's the whole evolution to that Mo Money. We always read.
Got you. So it because personally you feel like the last song is the weakest, does it bring the album down a little to you on a scale from 1 to 5? 5 being it don't mess it up at all, 1 being it messes it up.
Okay, 1, can I say 4? You know, taking 1 away. Me and here again, that's personal because of how I wanted it to ultimately sound. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? I consider a blemish based on that, but you know, as far as public domain, yeah, I would say a 5. So I'm kind of like a 4-5 with that. My personal is 4 and 5 to the world that love that record. You know what I mean?
Got you. Yeah, because for some people it's their favorite, but we just here to get your feeling on it. So that's perfect, man. Dimension 8, one of the most important, the mass appeal factor, man. You were signed to a major label, so clearly you were trying to do this on a major level. What would you say going in and from the beginning of this record to the final inception of it, do you think this was an album that was gonna have mass appeal? It went gold, it eventually, it's platinum now, ain't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you mentioning mass appeal, 5 years ago, you know, I wake up and have an Instagram quote from Nas telling me happy anniversary and salute behind that album. So to reach New York is some of my favorite MCs. Yeah, definitely, man, a 5, but that's considered.
So did you go in with that mind state? Like, hey, I want this to be, because you hear a lot of rappers that say, I just make music for me. But as soon as you sign that contract, you're no longer making music just for you, you're making it for the world. So did you go in saying, I want to hit as many corners as I can?
Well, I always did. I never made music just for me. I always say this here. I could be the dopest rapper, DJ, producer in my mama's back room. But if mama don't know about it, it don't go down the hall, let alone out the house, down the street, into the neighborhood, to the houses, and to the cars. So my whole aim was that type of aim. But like I say here again, learn how to go gold. If I could reach gold, then I could double it. You see what I'm saying? Off the street hood. Anything I did in the street, if I got something, I doubled it. You know what I mean? If not, triple, quadruple it. So that same kind of hustle ethic and work ethic, anything, product is product, right? A book, you know what I mean? Whatever you sell, a hamburger, you see what I'm saying? But that was my whole aim, you know, on the monetary game and the business side, just to support your life and foundation to keep, you know, your livelihood, you know, buy the record here, again, the studio cost. So in that same sense, I knew and had a good vibe and a good spiritual feeling that it was gonna be a big record and a great record, but how big and for how long, I had no clue. So right. Yeah, no doubt, absolutely.
And as an artist, I could tell, you know, from one rapper's ear, you know, from another rapper's mouth to another rapper's ear, I could tell that you went in, like you said earlier in this interview, with song construction in mind. You weren't just rapping to make raps, you were thinking songs, right? So it winds up only having 2 videos. We're talking about the Rap City, MTV Jams era. So how you do that there, of course, and then Times So Hard. I just discovered that you and Max Minnelli put together a video for Better Than the Last Time, like a couple years back, recently, and I almost lost my mind.
Man, look, 22, 23 years later, that show you music is timeless. You see what I'm saying? We made that shit so many years later, and we done had our off and ons throughout the years and all beefs and quarrels behind the scene. But we decided one day to just give it a shot and do something that hadn't been done in hip hop history and try to shoot the footage as far back as we could get it, you know, as far as the look of it. You know what I mean? So it came out nice, man. Everybody loved that, man. It's a lot of people's favorite record that's on that record.
Would that have been the 3rd video back in '98 if it was allowed?
Yeah, the truth be told, yeah, we had a plan to do about 6 or so of those videos. The day they made me boss, Ghost Rider, everything was motion picture. I had finally reached the place and was with a team of people that could financially support the whole movement, and we was all set to go. Then they started having different difficulties that I had no idea of, and somewhere between that year or so of me, you know, processing and getting ready for the 2nd album into the 3rd, you know, Priority folded and all that type of thing. But really between those 2 records, if you look at the differences, No Limit guys on that 2nd album I own. The only 2 guys that's on there's West Coast guys. Shouts out to Too Short, Big Dog again, and Daz Dillinger, the Dog Farm. You know what I mean? And everything else was camp. You know, we stayed camp. You know, the camp was really my foundation. CeeLo ran and owned the label, and that started with him and Leak Time in particular. Then I brought Happy Perez and Max Minnelli and the rest of those guys to the table, and a few other guys joined on their own. Grawl Nitty, Boo Rossini, so on and so forth, from New Orleans to Mississippi, Goldie from Tennessee, you know what I mean, Nashville. So, with all that said, they started having their difficulties, man, and for whatever reason, we never did those videos. You see what I'm saying? When I stayed on the label, everybody kind of started to differentiate from each other, you know what I mean, in that sense of the word. And I was kind of left, you know, holding the bag. You know, I was the only one really signed to Priority solo. You know what I mean? So I had to keep up what was going down. I was signed for a 7-album deal. So in the process of that, I felt I wasn't supported and pushed to that plateau. And keep in mind, No Limit, it was a team effort with CeeLo Records, No Limit Records, and Priority Records in the beginning for Balls of My Word. By the time you get to my own, it's just me and Priority. You see what I'm saying? So it was a different thing, and somewhere between that first record and not following up on those videos, obviously something went wrong, and it was never done. But over years, people still demanded that. So 23 years later, you know, me and Max got together and said, let's try it and see what come up. And it's phenomenal on the internet to this day.
Now, as far as radio play, did they play any songs locally in Baton Rouge radio that didn't get to be official singles and videos?
The different versions of a full original, then eventually how you do that. But that's all I want to say that they ever played off that album. Wow. You see what I'm saying? I don't know a radio station in the country, let alone the world, unless it's podcast or something like that, that played a sucker single. I don't remember Time So Hard being played on the radio. Wow. You see what I'm saying? I could be mistaken. But far as I know, to this day, people still call me around the world, video, shoot or whatever, and show me shows to however. Everybody plays that one song. But you have to be a true diehard Young Bleed fan and know anything else beyond the text.
Now, in your opinion, why do you think that is? Because Priority was like you said, it was going through its transition, but you had the No Limit machine behind you. So do you feel like that helped or hurt? Did having No Limit people confuse you and think that by the second album you wasn't down anymore or something? Did they not understand the structure?
I don't think they fully understood it. Once everybody got that one record, they ran with it. So nobody never actually sat down and asked me anything about what was my vision, what was my planning, none of that shit. You see what I'm saying? So from that, everybody got stuck on that one record, and still to this day. So yeah, of course, P-Numb was part of the machine that was fueling the machine. And like I say, at the time when I was in Priority, I want to say it was maybe about 75 artists over there. And of course, we can't put out 75 records a year unless you're doing the masterpiece. Every week you got to drop a record, you know what I mean? For those artists to see they just do it, you sitting on the bench. Out of those 75, I was in the top 4, if I'm not mistaken. That used to be the House of NWA, and eventually with Ice Cube doing what I did years prior to me, the House of Ice Cube, you know what I mean, when he went solo from NWA. Then eventually Mac 10, he walked Mac 10 in, and eventually P came along. So those were the 3, main guys that was over there, that was far as the heads, and me being a fan to the music first coming into that world. But by the time I was coming into that world, I think P was leaving and got another deal somewhere, something like that. Ice Cube was leaving, and Mac 10 was going to Cash Money or something at the time. So that left me right there to be able to do what I needed to do and so on and so forth. But when the roof is leaving, then the bottom of the flow fall out on you, which was the Priority Records Foundation. Then that forced me back in one sense of the word to go independent or stay there and wait out their legal battle. So I walked away with my name and continued to put out independent records to this day.
Gotcha. Yeah, Priority, I think you put it beautifully, man. It was definitely the House Ice Cube for an era. Then P kept it on. But beyond that, they have a lot of history of just rappers leaving them or being mad at them. We had Ras Kass's DJ on here when we went over his album. And Ras Kass famously was at war with them. We know Jay-Z came out with them first and switched right after that first album because he said their work wasn't right. So
I remember that.
All that is interesting, and you mentioned earlier that you kind of had the alley-oop before the album even came out because your song "A Fool" was buzzing locally, but once it hit that "I'm 'Bout It" soundtrack, it was platinum before you went gold. So, a lot of this will take us into the next dimension. So, on a scale from 1 to 5, what would you give this for mass appeal?
Like I say, overall, it's hard to go past that 5, man. I'm speaking of construction and infrastructure, and far as the build process. But overall, I still would give it a 5.
Okay. Dimension 9 is where we talk about the 3 I's. That's impact, influence, and innovation, right? You feel like you innovated anything on this album? One thing, before you answer that, I'll jump in and say you were one of the first, maybe not one of the first, but one of the more prominent rappers on a major label that wasn't afraid to do sing-song melodies on the track. Yeah. Before we had words for it, right? Before 50 Cent, Ja Rule, and everybody started calling it rap singing, you was just coming with whatever felt organic to you, right? See me walking coolest Clyde with my thing right by my side, like just the soulfulness. And so you feel like you kind of like were part of that, laying the foundation for people to feel a little bit more free.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And shouts out to Bone Thugs and Harmony before me that put the harmony on it. You see what I'm saying? They go way back. Like I say, I'm out the crates. But just what you just said, bro, in a nutshell.
Got you. And as far as influence, again, I throw another personal piece in there. How I personally discovered this album, man. My brother, shout out to my older brother Khaled, happy belated. But he's one of those guys. He just brought whatever the new CDs that were out. He had a stack of them. This back in the, I'm showing my age now talking about CDs. When you had the disc changer in your Jeep, you was doing big things, right? So I'd be sitting there. Yeah. And he had your album in the mix. I'm like, what you got this album for? What you did listening to these No Limit guys? You know, I'm a New York kid, so everything was Wu-Tang. If it wasn't Wu-Tang, it was whack. And
I remember that.
I had a lot of time. I was just sitting in the Jeep one day, and I was like, well, let me hear this, because as soon as you see that Pen and Pixel, them diamond encrusted covers, you kind of knew what you was getting into. But I popped it in, had no idea what I was getting into. Once I heard from the first track to the last, man, I was like, man, this some next level stuff right here. So for me, it was very influential in letting me know, one, you can't judge a book by its cover. Hip hop is vast, and you know, we all a part of this diaspora, and we got different perspectives on the same experiences. And you know, that it was a big deal for me. So I was checking for you for every video I could catch. You know, I was waiting for the third single. Once I saw Time So Hard, plus y'all sampled Anita Baker, I was hyped off of that single. So I was like, all right, where's the next video? And what would you say was the impact and the influence of this album?
What was the impact and the influence? Yeah, definitely, man, 100%. You know, for guys like yourself and the rest of the world, even when I'm feeling down or it's all right, somebody pops up on the weekly, I'm talking about today, and play that shit for me, or share a clip of it on Instagram or Twitter, you know, and it's the funny, you know, God working in mysterious ways, the weirdest time. When I'm like, fuck all that shit, I'm finna quit today, then that shit'll pop up from a total stranger. So if that's not impact and influence, I don't know what to call it.
And we talk about a gold and platinum album, and you know, you mentioned earlier some of the other rappers that came from your region ever since. Do you feel like you pioneered on a mainstream level? Because I know you said there was rappers that existed in the hood before you, but on a mainstream level, do you feel like Baton Rouge hip hop pioneer?
Yeah. The pioneer, you know, other than the guys I get credit to before me. The first guy I know to bring a gold record back to Baton Rouge, and we speaking Baton Rouge alone, was Kuiper with the Tic-Tac-Toe song. That's a good friend of mine since I was about 14, 15 years old. So coming out of here, I remember at a time listening to the New Orleans guys, and we all wishing to get that break like New York, Def Jam, or what have we, Long Old Death Row, and so on and so forth. He went gold and made me feel like it was possible to do that here. Big Mike went to the Ghetto Boys, you know what I mean? Bust Down, you know, rest in peace to Tim Smooth, went to Luke Skywalker record. So at one time, long before Cash Money No Limit, our first Cash Money No Limit was Rap-A-Lot and Luke Skywalker record. Boys, South Boys having the opportunity when they felt a certain way, and you know, you being a New York guy, I got some of that ridicule, but it's all love, especially with the OGs. So I get that. I remember being in New Orleans one night and Vintage Act came out. So, you know, we doing our turf talk and turf walk down Bourbon Street, and I run into a guy now, I think he might have been from the Bronx. And I tried to sell him one of the CDs, like, nah, man, same shit you said, but I ain't Wu-Tang, I'm from New York, dog. Fuck all that. I was like, look, bro, I'm gonna give it to you. If you don't like this bitch, you can throw it away. And he was a cool cat before we left. But over years, I got a lot of friends from Brooklyn to Bronx, you name. I got a great auntie that lives in Manhattan. You see what I'm saying? So, but I done lived in 41 states at least a weekend, and that's been my life dream since Wild Style and B Street to come to New York and see the 5 boroughs, man, and go back to the Mecca where this come from to make me understand me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely a student of hip hop, man. There's some, I'm jumping ahead, but yeah, when we talk about the song, how you do that there in particular, it's one of those songs that for better or for worse, it kind of outlives this album. It kind of outshines everything because of the longevity it's had in the game. So you went on, and I think you were signed to Tech N9ne's label, and you remixed this, but that was the same year that Problem remade your song too. And so I don't think you were on the Problem remix though. So how come that happened? Was there some like label issue?
You know, that's a whole nother story, but I try to brief you as well as I can. When I first went to Strange, of course, that was the idea of the company, and maybe even Tech N9ne and later Brother Lynch. And they true red and blue brothers of mine, both sides of the rag, you know what I mean? So Dave Weiner, being a friend of mine that was the vice president at Strange at the time, over 14, 15 years, we sorted each other out and found each other. And in the midst of me and Sibo dealing with West Coast Mafia, and it's all love and no separatism, I was between putting out the next record. And Dave came along with a supposedly better dealing situation at Strange. So I ended up over there, and they said the best way to do it, make everybody in that John to recognize me, was to redo how you do that with those guys. Really, I was like, man, I don't want to go through the same shit I went through for over 20 years to where it's one of the greatest records in hip hop history at a very least. And you don't see me, P and Low, perform that because of our different connection with each other. That part of hip hop I don't love. When they're supposed to unite the brothers and separate us, monetary gains, personal interest, and so on and so forth. So that part, I regret that. All I could do is my part. I can't speak for those guys, but I can say what I tried to do over the years. But I didn't want to take that same travel, you know what I mean, to have another hit record. And rather we got along or didn't get along or what have we. And that it came out kind of the same way. But in the midst of that and touring with him, Rickey Smiley did that stand-up comedy where he played this shit about 10 times. I'm still looking for Rickey Smiley to thank him to this day. He don't know he's telling the story of my life without knowing me in that sense of the word. But saying that to say this, when that happened, they wasn't so in tune to Rickey Smiley what have we. I mentioned that to Strange and was like, hey, this is the time to run with the record. By the time it reached y'all guys, I want to say E40 DJ or something like that played it at a party in California, called back like this shit is going crazy. But they didn't push the record. We never did a video or nothing like that. A few months after that, I'm real cool with J-Rock. Shouts out to Top Dog Entertainment, boys in West, Kendrick Lamar, King, Magnum P.I., rest in peace to MJ. You know, that's how cool we is. And saying to say this, J-Rock and I know at least King, Mag, went to school with Problem, elementary on up. One day I got a phone call at the crib, whoop, 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 hey man, Lake Captain Compton, you know, want to redid your record on a mixtape level. He was real cool and talked real good and mentioned my name. It's a lot of people that done bit that record. It's a lot of your favorite MCs from New York down, Jay-Z down. You see what I'm saying? That they tapped in, they never tapped in to me like a man. You see what I'm saying? And not even mention me or whatever, you know, and the young guys aren't expected to know their evolution. But when you old enough, you know your homework, man. Respect the game like you want people to respect your game.
Right.
So that part of it. But he put it out, and what I told him, I said, bro, I appreciate you even saying my name in that to make me relevant to the youngsters nowadays. I appreciate that. I ain't tripping on nothing. If it's some monetary game and I just make sure I get my just due, other than that, I ain't tripping. This shit 20 years old, run with it. And he did, and it took off from him. When he blew to a proportion, he started acting a certain way and not answering the phone and wasn't as humble as he was when he first called me. You see what I'm saying? And then I realized P had a hand in it, everybody was working, so we all tried to work it out behind the scene. It went good, then it went bad. To this day, I'm waiting to talk to Problem just to sort the differences. He called me back to straighten out some things, and it went a certain, you know, it wasn't no argument or nothing, I just never heard back from him. And from there, I get to talk between here in California about we need to talk. And we hadn't talked in that time. You see what I'm saying? So it's all love at the end of the day. But that influence.
I see why you say it's politics.
If you don't know a person, you know, you remember this in elementary school. We used to play duck, duck, goose, sit in a circle, and you tap a person or whisper something in one person's ear. By the time they get back around, they ain't what the fuck you said. You see what I'm saying? So I like to deal with people, man, heart to heart, man to man.
Exactly.
Oh my mobster shit. Come sit down with me. I deal with these phones, but if I fuck with you, come to the house, man. That way me and you got this understanding, ain't no in between, you know?
Got you. All right. So you said you give that a 5 for impact, influence, and innovation, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. This is we at the tail end of part 1. My last overall question for you is, man, in the whole bucket of timelessness, overall timelessness and uniqueness of this album, where do you think it fits in the hip hop history? Do you think it's a timeless classic?
Yeah, definitely a timeless classic. We all been going on 30 years. So I was tripping out on the Nas and 21 Savage lit quarrel about Nas not being relevant. And somebody come back and say, once you reach a legendary status, you don't have to go back to that relevancy. But I still keep a young on my name, and a lot of OGs tell me, man, take it and say OG Bleed or something. That's cool, but I remember Lit Rich. You see what I'm saying? Lit Anthony, and them old classic guys that's old men to this, you know, Lit Richard. You know what I mean? That still call themselves Lit Rich. So you're gonna grow up, you know what I mean? You're gonna be a man and all that type of thing. We know where we stand. You know what I mean? Don't get it confused. So I still try to be the bridge between that gap of young and old. The older I get in the game, eventually, you know, it trickle down. But just as far as for the benefit of the reconstruction of hip hop, or where we could put the band-aids to keep this going, man, so you know we can stay out here and you know, keep everything live, man. So
man. And that's the reason we're here, man. 25 years later, celebrating the emergence, the legend that put Baton Rouge hip hop on the map. Like you mentioned, some of the biggest folk now come from that region, from Boosie to NBA Youngboy. But it all started with what you did with A Fool, turning into how you do that there, and that song lives on. You got gold and platinum under your belt, and it's just a blessing to still be doing it. And you only got better over the years. Right? We hear a lot of our legends lose that spark. Your fire just grew bigger. If anybody listens to the later projects, it only gets better, man. So I gotta
look. And right there, you know what I mean, it go back, you know, everything 360 degrees. So, you know, from where our raw beginnings to where we, you know, to our raw completion. But back to Daz in that sense, you know, you right and he right, my brother, when he say you just getting started. So now look at that. As far as the industry part of the world, I was just getting started. And he was saying, you know, you have no idea. Shorter pitch different things like that at me that I caught on to later on. This is what they were saying. Okay, Moby did. You know, so I remember my pioneers, man, and each one teach one. If you don't know where you come from and know where you don't know where the fuck you're going to keep going. So yeah,
there you go.
Yes, sir.
On that note, listen, man, it's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you for chopping it up. Thank you for answering questions that I needed to know. I know the public needed to know, but a lot of these questions I needed to know the answer for. So I'm humbled, man.
Okay, well, yeah, you spoke like a true gentleman, man. What's necessary is necessary. I appreciate you, loved one, always.
Until next time, y'all know what it is. F a Rap Critic. They talk about it while I live it. Word to meth.